what are all the facets of a content creator? Because what you just said is like, so a content creator does more things than a videographer.
Yeah,
like,
I can
let's
make
just get
more
into
money.
that for the audience. Like, what is that? What are the different things a content creator has to get good at?
That's why I kind of think like if you're a YouTuber or a content creator, you're superior in that form because like you just do what gets views and you don't really care about the things that don't really matter.
So my friend Fitz, why do you do what you do? Why are you a videographer? I've been wondering this myself. Why
is he doing
why am I a
that?
videographer? No, but like as why do I do what I do? What are the reasons that got me here? And I'm interested with this. Like why are you not only a videographer, but why are you a guy that does podcasts, a content creator? Why are you in this media world? I guess what's gotten you here? Why are you here?
A lot of poor decisions. No, I mean like back in the day, like when I was like a little teen, and YouTube was like coming out and I was like following one of those YouTube gurus, and he's like, okay, he's a fitness trainer. He started a business and one of his things was like, yeah, whatever you do, you need to master, you have to have that master skill so you can unlock other things, when you do like, let's say I'm a videographer, I'm a web designer, I'm a cook, whatever, and you do too many things at the same time, you're doing nothing really right. But his like whole approach was like go all in on one thing, and after you achieve that, you unlock like a ton of like opportunities because like if you reach mastery, you can do a lot. But I did not know what I wanted to do. So I was like basically like probably you and everybody else, where it's like, I don't know on what to focus. And it's like, okay, I picked a career and that was an electrician. Didn't really like it. And then I'm like, okay, I want to be self-employed, and kind of went to America through circumstance and was like, okay, let's try a couple things out. And I did a lot of things. And then I remembered the one thing that I learned from the guy. It's like, oh, I cannot be a handyman and I cannot be a carpenter and I cannot be this and that. And, all the other, I was even importing phone cases from China, to flip them, and because phone cases at the time were like $30 and I got them for $1 or $2 from Alibaba, like I think like 8 years ago. And I was like, okay, I flipped them because Americans spend crazy money on phone cases. I don't know why they do that. In Germany, they're super cheap. And I'm like, okay, I bought 100 and then I had to do extra stuff. But I basically did not reach the mastery level on that. Should have focused on that instead of videography. Would have been probably more profitable. But while doing this, I was like, okay, I kind of want to document the story of like me being German, going to America and making videos. And then I kind of slipped into this video world. And while remembering that, I'm like, okay, I should focus on that, and see what comes around. And then I got like, oh yeah, media is everything, If you have a good story, people will basically listen and buy, and that is like the key thing. So no matter what you do, you kind of have to communicate the story. And since I cannot write, blogging was out. I couldn't write on my website because being foreign and whatever. I'm like, oh, this is an easy medium where my disadvantages don't really matter. So that's why I went all in on video in a way.
Oh, interesting. So you thought it's like video is like the best way to communicate. And for you, it got you around the obstacle of not being able to communicate the second language. That's really cool. I mean, that's so have you? And I think we've talked about this before in your past, but where did you? So where did you start to see that you had a skill for video? I mean, is there a point that you remember being like, actually, I'm kind of good at this? Was there a point that?
Oh, okay. So first off, there's like no, because like in the beginning you really suck, but you don't know that you suck, and then you adapt some skills, and you're like, okay, I can do this and that, and I'm like, oh, I want to get sponsors, and that was like 5 years ago, and I'm like, obviously there were no skills at all at the time. The learning curve is really steep, and everybody who watches video and TV and everything has like an excellent taste, and it's like everybody basically has an excellent taste, but if they cook themselves, they think it's great, but it actually sucks, So it's like in the beginning, you kind of have to get through that learning phase. And I was like, I don't even know if I'm good at it, but I was just doing it because I did once a collab with a big YouTuber, and my video with her went super viral. And at the time, I'm like, oh, I can be viral on YouTube. That's fine,
That's cool.
And that was like the motivation of like, oh yeah, I can do YouTube. It was not like, oh yeah, I can be a videographer, because videographers are like, I think like not as capable as like YouTubers, because that one thing is like multiple jobs.
Oh, interesting. So, all right, let's dive into that for a second. So it almost sounds like you wouldn't even call yourself a videographer first. Nope. You would call yourself a YouTuber first, videographer second.
Not even. I mean, like, it's more content creator nowadays.
You're a content creator.
Yeah, because
and
like
and I guess break that down. Let's break that down. Like, what is like? So, what are all the facets of a content creator? Because what you just said is like, so a content creator does more things than a videographer.
Yeah,
like, let's just get into that for the audience. Like, what is that? What are the different things a content creator has to get good at?
First off, it's a vague definition of a job, because it's like, I'm a social media manager, that could mean anything to anybody, like, oh yeah, I'm posting stuff for other people, I'm using a scheduling tool, that could be like part of a content creator too, but in the end, it's like really determining how and what you do, because like some content creators are better than others, but if you're like a top content creator, you can have an iPhone and you make millions. And it's like, if you're a videographer, you're usually like working on a big set with a bunch of people, and their projects maybe cost like $50,000 that is split through a set of 10, 15 people. And the video will not be seen because it's fucking boring, but the company has to pay money to run ads, so it will be seen, So it's like, that's why I kind of think like, if you're a YouTuber or a content creator, you're superior in that form, because like you just do what gets views and you don't really care about the things that don't really matter.
Well, it's interesting.
It's loaded.
It's interesting. It's very loaded what you just said.
I know.
And some people would definitely debate that. It's really funny. Do you feel like there's that debate? Do you ever run into videographers that are kind of anti-content creator? Yeah,
all
do you?
The time.
Tell me about that. How is that? What do you hear?
It's the funniest thing, because like all the videographers are basically like, okay, I hate 9 by 16. It's like the horizontal versus vertical, and it's just like but you're making videos that want to be seen. You're like, oh yeah, they're cinematic, and nobody watches them. It's like, it's like good design. If you just post good designs on your Instagram, nobody really cares, because there's no story, no message, no anything. It looks pretty, but it looks like, like a company would do it. And that is the problem with like videography kinda. And it's like, but if you're a content creator, you get the views because you do engaging stuff that is very creative, versus like, this is very pretty. And they hate on that.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, no, I think it's really, really funny, because it's, well, like we run into the same thing in the web design world, where a lot, it seems like, because we're all based on this phone now, and like so a lot of web designers, at least inexperienced web designers, they'll always design for a desktop, and I still do from time to time, because you can have more fun with a huge screen, but really, 80% of all your traffic's going to be on the phone, man. They're not going to see the big, beautiful spread you made. And then a lot of the time when people put all the effort in the big screen, once it goes to a small screen, they don't have any really time to move things around. They've made it so complex that they just have to make it really basic. And so it's funny that like the same thing happens in the video world, it sounds like, where people are frustrated. They're like, no, I want the full frame. I can do so much with the full frame. But it's like, no, bud, you have to go to vertical. And I know it sucks. You get the screen and you get the ground, and what story is going to be told there. But it's very interesting. So there's still that. And well, it's interesting too that like I almost view like videography is interesting, because it's almost like creating a story, creating a realm, creating a thing, like a world building kind of thing, where like the content creator though is like, this is the world, this is the stage, like life is a stage and you're an actor in the stage kind of thing.
I would even define it like differently, because like, a cinematographer or videographer, it's kind of the same thing, but it's more like, okay, I want to tell a pretty story, and they don't question themselves, is that story worth telling, And as a content creator, is like, I need a good idea, and the idea is more important than how it's delivered, because if the idea is boring, nobody wants to watch it, because you need a good hook, a good idea, so that you get the attention. because otherwise there's no reason to watch it unless somebody else maybe tells you this movie is super cinematic or this movie, super hype, otherwise you would not watch like the first 20 minutes of that movie because you don't know if it's good or bad, and
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because like even as you talk, it's I almost think of this as a timeline, right? Cinematography. Well, it's because videos were at one time you could only watch videos in a cinema. People didn't even have TVs, so you had cinematographers and then videographers when the idea of videos, when the idea of like we have video outside of the cinema, so videographer. And now it seems like the timelines move to content creators. Like that's like it's just like this kind of timeline step based on technology. It's just not called contentegraphy or whatever because it would be too weird. So it's called content creators. We create content.
It's actually a good word. It's a good word for a T-shirt, I would say.
Contentography. I'm a tintographist. I'm a contentographer. Yeah, it's like if you can say it, you can do it.
Well, you can't say it, so you cannot do it.
You can't do it. Give me that shirt. But yeah, so no, it's really interesting. But you're in this. It seems like now though, the one thing that hasn't changed is you want to tell a story, and for you, the most effective way of telling a story is video. Is that true? Would you still say that to this day, video is probably still the most effective way to tell a story?
I mean, definitely is, because like it's the number one thing. Like even this podcast, like I think on it's video based. Like on YouTube, when news getting spread, most likely you saw video. Or if there's like a blog post or whatever, you want to see the video to it because it's easier to consume. But that is like also like what is your type of learning? So I'm like I still strongly agree it's like the number one. But sometimes, like let's first say for tutorials, I prefer text, because then you can break it down and you can skim easier and faster, So there's obviously different ways of doing so, but I think it's like superior in many ways because like when you see the person, you get attached to the person and then you build a connection with that person versus like, oh, there's like a font and a text and no voice,
Yeah. Well, in the reality, right? There's something to people feeling like something's real because you said something earlier where it's like when things are really polished, it seems like people detach from it now, right? AI has definitely showed that. It's really funny how you can see people now that use AI on the thumbnails, for example, like at least the filter, that bumps everything in a certain direction. And it's funny because, and this may just be a me thing, but it actually makes me dislike it more. It feels worse to me in a weird way, right? Where when like the colors are punched up too much, it's too smooth, it feels odd. It feels like almost alien in a way, especially with people's faces. It starts to feel like a little like, whoa, okay, that's a little too impactful, a little too animated. So I think there's something there when you say the imperfectness is still really awesome. There's something really cool about a little bit of a shaky camera, a little bit of a lens flare, a little bit of someone not speaking perfectly or the light not hitting them perfectly. There's something to that.
Yeah. You said there's something too, like, like with the lens flare, composition, and all of that stuff. A videographer has only one job, it's like, okay, you need to frame it, film it, make it nice looking. Sometimes they don't even pull like their own focus. And nowadays with like better cameras, there's autofocus, but videographers, usually they have like a focus pull. That's a whole job, where it's like, oh, guys sitting there with a monitor and just like, focus pulling. And in the content creator world, you do all of that plus like you're doing like thumbnail and graphic design, and how fun it is to do a thumbnail. You're getting into it, and then it's like you have to write the description, you write the titles, you have to post, then you need to know like the topic research. You do basically everything that the videographer is not doing. So I'm like,
Yeah. I mean, it's really like, content creator is funny because it almost undersells it. What you're doing is you're being like a micro media company is what you're doing. You're being a media producer. You're doing everything that like there's a whole media production companies that's what they did. They handled each part of that. It's even funny how some of these podcasts, the bigger ones, right, that do really well, it's funny how they have writers on staff and stuff. Can you imagine if we had people writing our podcasts?
Yeah.
Like that's just an insane like interesting thought. Like our only role in this would just be two talking heads. Then it wouldn't really be our ideas. It would just be like news of the day or whatever AI told us to talk about.
Yeah,
Which would be interesting. I almost feel like that would be a fun episode, by the way, is if we had a whole episode where we had AI tell us like what to talk about, and we just go with
let's
it.
write that down. ChatGPT, you're our boss now.
Yeah, that would be really funny. We could even have like a guest, like have ChatGPT be like a guest somehow, like at some point. It'd be pretty funny.
Yeah. Yeah. With that being said, like you're right. It is like you're being a media company, but now you're like asking, like, oh, I can just say I'm a media company, and like, sure, everybody could do that nowadays. Even like a personal brand can be a media company, but the only difference is like how good are you, and like how many views can you pull, and how big is your following, and what is like the things that you on average can promise, because like there's obviously stuff that flops, there's obviously stuff that works, but that is the only difference, like there's companies like with 100 employees who pull less than somebody with like 2 employees, and they're both media companies, and it's just like it doesn't really matter if it's like big corporate. It's like how effective are you with like the knowledge and the feel to the time, because like when you do certain types of content, you feel like, okay, this fits into this generation and the audience, the more aligned you are, the more viral can you go. And it's like some people don't see that,
Yeah, well, it's hard because yet again, in a media company, like a larger one, you have people doing that research. You literally have market research. You have
and it's still worse.
Yeah, well, and sometimes they're worse. Sometimes they're detached. It's really funny, You see both, right? It's really interesting when you see on the world stage the big companies that do it right and the big companies that do it wrong.
Yeah,
and it's really funny to see how when a big company like one of the trends right now that we're seeing a lot that people are using is the whole person tripping. We should probably show a video here, but you like you trip and you beep up, you check out, you buy the stuff and they're like waving at you. Like I've seen small businesses do it, and even when big businesses are quick, like, and the thing is about being quick about it, and they do it, it's like really impactful and it works really well. Even we just had a exactly, and it could also be late, right? I'm sure you've seen that too, where they're too late, and it's kind of like, okay, guys, you missed the thing, But even April Fool's this year, I thought was really interesting, right? Every year when April Fool's Day rolls around, it's always funny to see who does like whatever April Fools and who does ones that are actually kind of trick you for a second.
Yeah.
I had a couple that I saw that I was like, dang, you actually tricked me for a second. I was like, oh my God, is that happening? And like, oh, you got me. And it was like really effective.
Yeah. I mean, like, that's like kind of the thing I would say, like the better you can put, like, being on time with the right thing, the better it is. And you don't need a lot of people, because like all those small companies, they're way, way, way more flexible and faster, It's like you see with like all the Instagram accounts, you will not see like the big companies like getting a lot of engagement. They're usually buying the engagement, or doing XYZ. And
they're starting to, and I don't know this by experience. I'm sure you've seen this and heard this a little bit, but they're farming out to content creators now. That's what they do. Like Pepsi is like, hey, we're gonna hire 50 of the top content creators out there, and then we're gonna have them come up with the ideas. They push stuff. We just give them the money to do it. We just pay them X amount for X amount of views on whatever video that they do with our product. So that's what they've done, is they've just been like, all right, let's just farm it out to them. Let's just and it's cool because, there's young people that, like, I don't know if they would have been able to get into the video career without being a content creator. Have you felt that? Have you felt that, like, there's a lot of people you meet that wouldn't be able to even be in the video world?
I still don't want to be in there. It's like I have not been on a film set, and I'm like, I don't want to be there, because then it's like you're only one thing. You're like one wheel in the bearing.
You're one cog in the machine.
One cock in the machine, it's like you have no impact. It doesn't really matter. And it's just like, then you have to deal with like all sorts of other things where somebody else tells you what to do and how to do. And it's like, when I have that with clients, like, for example, like, and they are like not really experienced with like social media or doing posts or whatever. And they're like, no, I want it this way. And I'm like, you don't really want it this way. You don't know why you don't want it this way. But if I would tell you, like, thumbnails, for example. It's not about them being pretty. It's about them being like, working versus like,
Mm.
stuff like that. Or like the description. If you write it too technical, nobody will type that in. Nobody will read it because it's like inconvenient to read because it's like extravagant words. And it's just like, it's not nice and easy.
Okay, yeah. So what I heard there was that I guess the allure of being a content creator over being a videographer is that you have control. You don't necessarily want to be out of control. You want the control. You want to be
Yeah.
in 100% control. Do you think that's going to be more and more common? Because I feel like, do you think more and more people are like that you meet? Do you feel like the other people you meet are in it because they want the independence? Do you think that's one of the biggest allures of being a content creator is the independence part?
I don't even know if it's about the independence, but it's like it's the best thing you can do to grow, and you get 100% of the profits. It's like being freelance
Okay.
100%. It's like
Mm-hmm.
imagine like you're being now a web designer, and now you have to split your job into like the graphic designer, even though you could do both.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like one of the things where it's like you split everything or you do everything.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I'm on this road where I've been doing everything myself, and I'm almost going to a place now where I'm trying to figure out how to not do everything myself. I think
But do
that's
you
that.
only want to code? You know what I mean? Is that fun? Or would you like to do some graphics,
Well,
once in a
exactly. Well,
while?
it's figuring out what that is, right? And for some people, it would be the code. I've met people that hate the design part of it and they love the code part. And I think for me, it's not that I hate the code part, but I think like I move faster and have more success. I feel like in the design part. So I think for me, like it's not necessarily finding people to code for me, but it's definitely finding like, yeah, what are the things that waste the time for me? Like for example, sales. Actually more. You'd probably agree more so than code. I fail the most at sales. Like I don't like sales. I
Hmm.
clearly don't. I don't post all the time. I'm not like very good at sales for
Well, this is more
myself.
marketing, like marketing sales, kind of, yeah.
So it's like that's really who I would want to farm out to. Is I would
Yeah,
want to like farm out the sales part of like bring me clients, bring me hot leads.
yeah.
So I think
Do you like the
it's
pitching, though? That is like the other part.
I'm okay with it. If you can get them in the room and they have an issue to solve, I kind of hit home runs. I don't want to sound too cocky, but I kind of hit home runs. Like once you get me into that first meeting,
Yeah.
I have a pretty good closing rate for the most
The
part.
tranquilizer and everything.
Ooh, you need a website. But yeah, so it is figuring that out. I think the one thing that I sometimes do push back on, and it's a problem with our generation and younger people, is this obsession with independence, this obsession of I'm going to do it myself. Like I recently had a friend back in Colorado Springs where he asked for a logo, and I estimated it out, and I gave him a dog dirt cheap price because like and I don't do free work, and we've talked about
Yeah,
this before. I don't do free work because then I won't want to do it won't get in the schedule. So I'm
yeah,
really doing you a favor by having you pay, because then I have to do it, it's in the schedule. But
yeah.
I was like, okay, I'll do the logo for $200, man. Is that in your budget? Which is $200. Like anyone out there, like that's not like that's a cheap price for a logo. Like that's a cheap price to give someone a logo. And I got ghosted by him. And it's like really funny to me that like, I was even happy that he even reached out about the logo, but you could
Yeah.
tell immediately he was just like turned off of like paying any price for a logo, really. And so it's like this kind of weird, because we think in our own mind, what does $200 buy, right? I can maybe buy a game console for $200. I could buy other stuff. So like, why would I pay Sean to do this for $200? So it's really interesting, and that's a friend. So it's really interesting.
Friends shouldn't be clients, though, kind of sometimes,
Yeah.
because they want the hookup. And I told you the story that I had with one of my clients. Like, they are doing the logo design, and I'm like, boy, oh boy, I'm just like going through nightmare phases with them just by them, like, okay, I want this logo, and I love it. And I'm like, this logo fucking sucks. I obviously said it in the first time, and after that, I shut my mouth. But so many things wrong with it. I'm like, at this point, I
Well, it's
cannot
hard.
even.
It's hard when you're the video guy too, because I have to be careful too, because the same thing happens with videos. When I'm doing a website design, I sometimes have to stay in my lane, because if I go far out of my lane, I'm like, yeah, but let's talk about the video for a second.
Yeah.
Now I get in that muddy waters where I'm not the website expert. Now Sean's trying to do everything. Sean's just trying to be the creative director here, and that can turn people off, I've found. So there's times where I see other people's work and I have to kind of be like, if it doesn't directly affect my work a ton, I have to just kind of be like, that's between them and God. I can't touch
but
it.
with logos, for example, if they don't really well, and they're bleeding through, and you don't see like the background, or you only see the background and the logo goes under in the video, stuff like that, like obviously we all can tell if something is really, really good or really, really bad, and if somebody sees it as really, really bad, it's like, oh.
Yeah, and the way I skirt around that is then, like just to take your example is I'm like, well, I don't even tell them this. I just don't have the logo very present. And then when they bring up, oh, well, we want the logo more present, then I'm like, yeah, I would, but it just gets lost. And then I'll show them. I'll be like, here's a picture. See how lost it gets?
Then you have to do though. And I'm just like, I gave up on the one client. And I'm just like, okay, whenever I tell them what to do and how to do better and they agree, I have extra work. And I'm just like, God damn.
It's just hard because like that's what it ends up being, right? So like yet again, to bring it back in where it's like I'm doing a website, let's say, and I see a video that sucks and they want it on the homepage. If I go into this whole thing about like this video sucks because X, Y, and Z, this and that sucks and this sucks about it, but I don't have like a solution to give them immediately. I don't have like, hey, here's my boy Fitz, he's ready to do it. Or if I don't have a solution I can give them, then they're like, so what? What did you just do? All you did is badmouth it and you didn't give us any solutions. Okay, like so that's a thing too, is like unless I have something kind of ready, like to like maybe send them, I kind of like, if I can't help you, I don't want to like mess this up for you either. I don't want to be it's like being the roofer. It's like some like you hire a roofer and he's like goes to use the bathroom, he's like, oh, your plumbing's kind of bad. You're like, dude, look at the roof, what are you doing? Like, why are you in the bathroom looking under the cabinet? So it's that kind of thing.
I mean, like, partially, like some things like relate to each other and some less, because like the roofer can tell you if something is wrong with like the wood or the foundation or whatever.
If it's like proxy to it, if it like connects to it, yeah, you're right. If it's like
if it's implemented in the work, it relates somewhat, and it's like they maybe see stuff on the construction side and have good knowledge. It's like people without that knowledge, they are usually the problem, like, oh, you ask your buddy who maybe doesn't like the video, for example, and he does not do video, nor does he do XYZ, and he's just like style-wise, It's like, it could be so many things. So it should be people in an industry, related to it should have a saying, or should be taken more seriously than, oh yeah, the wife, for example, not liking XYZ for whatever reason.
Well, and I think that's the importance of us having a good network. And this is something I still need to get better at. I'll probably say it for the entirety of this podcast. Every episode, I'll say I need to get my network better. But like that's where having the solid network is, right? Because if you go into a website or if you go into a video project for you and the logo does suck, that's where having a solid logo guy that you can trust, you can send stuff his way is super, super important. Because I think we're allowed to talk about these things. You're allowed to bring these things up, especially if they affect your thing. But yeah, I think you have to send them somewhere. You can't just critique and be like, so figure it out. Like that I feel like is not helpful. I
did that too. Just like, yep, I tried to make it. And I'm like, oh, nope.
Yeah. Well, that's where I run into a thing is when it's their business practices suck, then I can't do anything. Like when you're operationally, you guys just don't know what the heck you're doing as a business. Like you can't schedule stuff correctly. You can't do stuff. Then I'm just like, I put my hands up like, you're a lost cause. I don't build businesses. I didn't go to business school, so I can't help you. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, like that's like kind of the industry. People doing everything, and yeah.
Some people are. See, I think that's the thing, though. I think the flex is not doing everything. Like I think the young people in general, and when I say us as young people, I know we're on the edge of not being young, but like
edge.
I'm gonna say we're on the good edge of being young still. We got another year or two in us.
I like hearing that, Sean. I like hearing that.
I'm hiding from here down for a reason, ladies and gentlemen. I'm getting that nice 30s beer gut and everything. But I think the biggest thing though, the biggest like way to be mature is not necessarily to farm stuff out. I don't like that idea of like I don't do anything. I just farm it out to people, but is giving, trickle down, even on just a level of like, it doesn't always have to serve you. It could help someone else. I think
Yeah.
that's kind of cool. I've run into people that have trickled down to me, and I know that feels really good. Where, so if like you can do it, like I can also do video, but be like, but Fitz needs some work right now. Like then let's trickle it to the guy that does this and needs more work.
Yeah, I mean, like, it is a complicated thing, and there's no right or wrong answer because it's like highly dependent, It's like, obviously, if you know a designer and ask him about advice, he probably knows better. But then you have the clients who don't want to spend the money, and they think like if the image is pretty, it's a good logo. And it's like you got to filter them or figure out how to work with them.
Well, yeah. Well, and some of it comes into prepping too. You have to, like, if you're going to bring someone in, you can prep the client. You can make it seem like it's a good idea even before they meet the person, right? Like,
Yeah.
like recently, like, you're on a gig now that like I've worked with the clients that you're on this gig with for over a decade now, and
Yeah.
so like I've always prepped them into the whole content. You need to create content if you want to do this world takeover with your business. You need to like do more content. You need to do more content. And so it's like,
it's easier said than done.
So now too. but now that's ideas in their head, and that it's been for years, and he, even the business owner started to do his own content and stuff too on the side. Like now you've entered the room, and it's a good time for you to enter the room rather than we've never talked about videos, we've never talked about content. No. Oh, here's this guy that does content, and he's be like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that is also like a loaded topic. Like as long as you keep doing and learning and you like have a good mindset, you can achieve anything. But I have like, for example, also a buddy of mine, he's like, he wanted to build a clothing brand, I think like 4 years ago, and he had like the ideas about like a hat and a bag and whatever, and never did it. Now he's getting married and everything, and he's like, oh, I want to start a clothing brand. And all he's really doing is just talking about it, but not doing, It's just like, that's very dangerous. And
Yeah.
So as long as you keep doing, that is the main thing.
Yeah. Well, in the tarot cards, I'm going to go to a metaphysical place.
Oh, there we go.
In tarot cards, there's a card called the Hanging Man. And the whole thing about the Hanging Man is that while it's good to prepare yourself, there is over preparation. There is a point where you're just hanging and everything else is getting done around you. And so, there is some definite wisdom in that of like, just start. I recently gave a talk on web design and stuff to artists and it was really in creative businesses. And it was really interesting where I started it out in a way that surprised people because I had these 3 levels of you creating your website. And level 1 was you can sell work online without creating a website, and you should do that tonight. If the website's going to take time, if it's going to take a budget, if it's going to take working with someone like me, then you should start it tonight. You should start it tonight on Etsy. You should start it tonight on whatever platform you choose. Is the margins great? No. Is it going to be customizable as much as you want? No. But it gets you started. You're started tonight. You're not like in this weird limbo until you start. That could, as you've seen, take years. It could just take years forever.
Or it never happens.
Or never happen.
Like, because like if you talk about it and you're not doing it, then you're just talking and you feel like I achieved so much. I talked to this guy, I talked to that guy, I set things in motion, but nothing really got done, Yeah. And that's like a thing that I see a lot nowadays. It's like a lot of people like, I want to start a podcast, for example. They film podcasts, but didn't post podcasts. What, like, and then it's like, you're spending all that money and time inviting people and doing that. And then you don't post it. At least post it. It's just like people are like talking but not doing, but because they did the work and talked about it, but they did not hit the button.
Yeah.
Have they done anything then? That's like very scary then.
Yeah. Well, the perfect becomes the enemy of the good. And I felt that in my life for sure. I definitely have done that mistake of having so many things behind closed doors that just never got birthed. They never got out in the world because I was too scared of it being imperfect. I was too scared of it not doing well, and it never gets done. So you're 100% right. It's not going to be perfect, and you have to just get over that thought, right? You have to just put it out there. And like we said at the beginning of this conversation is that's powerful is when people feel like it's a real video, that like you are an actor on the life stage and and I believe it. I think that's what's cool. I think when I hear about this podcast from people, they'll be like, oh, I started on episode 1 of the podcast, and I'm like, oh yeah, did you? Okay.
So you're free.
What do you think? What do you what do you think of those first ones? And they're actually like, no, it's cool. It's like really, they like the reality of it. I think they like that they're like, you guys are real people. You're talking about your real experiences, and it's actually really cool to hear. So it's surprising, because even me in my head, I'm like, people only want the perfect Sean. They don't like the imperfect Sean. They don't like that guy.
They don't want the perfect Sean.
But they don't want that. It's actually the opposite. They don't want the perfect Sean. They want the imperfect
because like
Sean.
The more perfect you are, the more you sound like a repetitive ad. And then let me swipe. Oh, it's like, oh yeah, I can predict the future. I know what is the right advice, the right thing, because they know what we're about to say, because it's like, it's too perfect. It's like, oh, should I do this or should I do that? What is the perfect business advice? They already know in their head. Like when we set up the stage for the problem or the lesson, it's like, oh yeah, got it already. It's like, oh. Versus like, hey, I fucked this up and I'm trying that. It's probably not working, So the less professional it is, the more engaging it is. Versus like, oh yeah, here's me spitting wisdom how to invest, Where it's like, oh yeah, I know how to invest, but yeah.
It's like, I think the cool balance I see too with the content creators out there that are at least in my realm, like the web design in general realm, is that they're both real and professional. They somehow do both. Like, you can tell that they're an amazing person at what they do, but it's all like funny or comedic or real, and I think that's the perfect balance. I feel like, because you see the people that are too polished, everything's so perfect, and like there was recently, I'm not going to name names, there was a podcast that just came out recently, a creative podcast, and they're doing a really great job of how polished it looks, the marketing of it. They're already doing better than us in some ways and how they're marketing it and things. However, it just feels too put together, and it becomes like too presumptuous in a way. It's almost like, we know we're big shit, you just need to, and you would think that like in your head that would attract people, right? Like, oh yeah, they're cool, I want to be part of this cool thing. But what's funny is I feel like, and I know these guys, so it's like, and I'll still watch it because I'm a good friend, but like, it actually kind of turned me off how polished it was from the very beginning. It was just very like, yeah, we're really cool. And I was like, yeah, but you're not yet. Like, you need to kind of like be okay with that. Or like, you don't have to like say that, but like, I don't know. It was almost too polished. I guess my whole takeaway on that was like, it was too corporate polished. It felt like they already had 100,000 followers and they didn't. So it felt disingenuine, I guess. That's my biggest takeaway on that, is like, it's like we've said it before, you can almost do too good in a weird way. You can almost have it be too good of a thing that people are like, yeah, but you got 10 views. Why are you acting like you have 1 million views? Like, this just doesn't feel like in reality.
It is a complicated thing, but I'm like, doing is always better than not doing. So I'm like, I always say, gotta fuck things up, It's like my favorite thing.
That's the motto of your company now? Just gotta fuck things up.
Just like, gotta post it, gotta do it, gotta, release it, gotta do whatever. And if it's messed up, but didn't post it or didn't do it, it doesn't matter, But if you mess it up, you maybe get a sale, and you maybe get now the momentum and the things you need to learn for the next one that is less fucked up,
Yeah, no, I get that. And, and one thing too, that I do want to highlight, that I see some, we've even had some guests that I feel like I've seen do this and they're doing this great, is that, we don't do this necessarily for this podcast really well, but showing yourself in the world is really important, right? So to like start a podcast day one and be like, I am a master international logo designer, and here we are on my logo podcast. But like, there's no you at any conventions. There's no you giving any talks. There's no you working with any teams. There's no you anywhere. There's nothing of
like
you.
B-roll of like you highlighting like the proof. The social proof.
Yeah, there's nothing. There's no social proof, right? So it's like,
that's why you need to hire a videographer.
Yeah, well, yeah, and videos, but that's all, and that's just part of it, right? Like, let's say even if you don't, it's like you just need to go to more things, just be at things. People are there taking pictures anyway. You just need to like I face this too because I go to stuff, but even I'm not super photogenic. Like I'm not like in all the pictures. I'm not like, so even when I go to things, it's not like I show up in things and get tagged,
Yeah.
but like, you know, I think that's important though. I think the people that do well, it's like you get this sense of like, you are this is who you are, versus the people that like, they just live in their office and they create this like
Yeah.
polished perspective of themselves, and they get the LED lights on the back wall, and they get all the fancy stuff, and they wear the black shirt with the V cut, and you know, and it's
This
just
kind
like,
of goes back to the whole like how you're being seen in the community, you know. So it's like if
right.
there's a photo of you being a wood chopper, you know,
Mm-hmm.
people will believe you're a wood chopper if you're chopping wood in the pictures, you know. So it's like it's highly, or videos, it's highly important to document like, hey, this is me doing work, and then like posting that, or like being with other people. So it's like, oh yeah, he has clients.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah, he's doing the work, you know, because like just posting like a nice tree that lays flat on the floor because it's perfectly chopped doesn't tell anybody anything,
Yeah.
even
Well,
though it's good work, you know.
yeah, and let people in. I think that's the biggest thing too. And yet again, if you were to go look at Sean Craig Creative, you know, you're probably going to see that I'm not doing a great job of what I'm about to say, but like, you know, what you need to do too is you have to let people in. You have to have posts that are kind of like, oh, hey, this guy's real. This is what he thinks. Like, let's say you're even trying to craft this like polished persona, and that is really important. You don't want to have weird stuff. You want to be like, no, every time I talk, it's polished. I want to be known as like a famous artist or something. That's
Yeah.
cool. But then like have videos where you're like being that famous artist. Like what would be the video that Salvador Dali would do? What would he make? He'd make some crazy video with some weird stuff and be like, this is the world, this is how we live, the end.
Yeah.
And that would be it. And it would be like he would post cool, crazy stuff like that. Like, do that then. Like, let me in. Let me figure out
Yeah.
you're crazy. Let me get weirded out by that weirdness. You know, I think that's the problem, is people are scared to do that. They're scared to be actually controversial, actually let people in. I think so they're like, let's be as polished as possible, and that's the safe bet. When safe is boring, safe means no views. So it gets back to that new podcast that got started. They killed it, and if they're randomly watching this, you guys are killing it with your marketing. I'm not shit talking at all, but
Now you're talking so much about them, I want to see what they're doing.
but we'll talk about it off camera. But you know, it's you need to let me in. You need to let me into your world.
Let the Sean in.
Let me in. Let me in.
No, yeah. I mean, like, there's truth to that, because, like, the mastermind that I was, like, filming, the biggest thing is, like, what is the idea behind the video, or what is the idea behind the question, the topic, whatever. And if the idea is good, the question is good, then people want to listen. And it's like, when you make a reel, for example, don't make a reel that is, like, boring, you know. It's like, ask the question that everybody thinks but it's too afraid to ask. And then it's like, usually, like, when I'm on the yacht, for example, I'm like, hey, how many people did fall into the water while trying to get on the boat, you know? Is that a thing that commonly happens, you know? And it's like, just like stuff like that. Like, obviously you don't want to talk about injuries and all that negative stuff, but people want to know that, you know? And then it becomes like, oh, there's actually physically pain that you have to, you know, overcome by making that content that you don't want to make. It's like, my wife is like basically asking me uncomfortable questions for reels for myself. I'm like, ugh, I don't know if I want to post it, you know, but it's like, oh, if that's a true, honest, weird question, people want to know, you know. And it's like, all the shit you don't want to, you know, share, it's usually the stuff you should share because it's very, very interesting.
I would say that, yeah, with a caveat, not that I'm speaking from any experience here, but I have heard, you know, from people, and even on podcasts they've talked about it, is you definitely, I will say a caveat, and maybe you disagree with this, that there should still be a personal life. Like, if there is stuff that your partner doesn't want you to know, if there's things that are truly secret and close to you guys, and if it gets out in the world, like, let's say you're having problems with your significant other, and then you put that on an episode, and now everyone's going to bring that up to the significant other, and it's going to build the problem. I think, like, there's things to be careful of. So I would say that to any content creator, not like I can speak from I'm
I
not
mean,
famous,
that is what
but
sells. If there's drama, it sells. It's the number one thing. What is the priority? You want to save the relationship, or you want to have the views?
well, and
That
really to like take another page out of a lot of content creators' books and just have fake drama. Then like people get away with
that's the
that too.
thing too.
Like you and I having like an argument on camera and be like, you know what, Fitz, I'm sick of this. I'm sick of you and your stupid videos. You don't. And we just like have an actual, but it's not really an argument. Like I see that
Yeah.
work where it's like the real stuff though. I don't know. I'm always gonna be hesitant, right? Like if I have a real thing, like if you and I actually had like a real like this is gonna end our friendship problem, I
Aw.
probably wouldn't bring it up on the podcast because it's like it doesn't need to be everybody's, because
Yeah.
once it gets out in the world, it kind of changes. It's you lose control of it once the rest of the
You
world
do and
kind
you
of.
don't. Like I had that with my other podcast where I had a falling out because guy was like just an asshole and I didn't want to work with him and there
He
was
still is, by
drama.
the way. I just like watched a video the other day where they were arguing. It's just a reel of them arguing. I was like,
Yeah, well, but I mean, like, it is whatever, but if I would paid attention to them and like mentioned them by name and built the publicity, it would have like helped them, And it's like the one thing, if you have drama, it's really good for social media and engagement because people love drama, people love emotion, people love to get the tea, people love to get everything. But if you don't mention them with name, it's kind of the Voldemort thing. There's no power in it, and there's no, silence, and it will just die out without a bang. But if you make the bang happen, then it's just like, both sides grow, because it's like, oh, the community is invested now because those two members have issues. The whole community comes together and wants to know and wants to solve the problem. That's kind of like what goes on with the viewers, basically, and they just want to know who's right, who's wrong. Even if you're wrong, it doesn't really matter because, like, they will forgive you after 2 or 3 weeks. You could do anything.
I think so. I mean, I think like it's not always the drama. I don't think like it's a lot of different things, right? It's just whatever you train people to be interested, right? So when you watch like the Huberman Lab podcast, it's not like you go to that because of the drama. That's not why you
Oh,
watch
you
that.
did though. You did when he was like getting those 6 girls. I was like, God damn, man, that guy has some game.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have to get into this, but yeah, he should. I mean, have you seen him? And he's super smart. Like, yeah, he's like jacked and like covered in tats. And anyway,
Yeah.
I
So
think
all
he
the
should
questions
be.
you would like to ask, it's like, oh
Anyway,
yeah.
we don't have to get into the drama of that, but I guess my point of that though was that like the drama
Why not
doesn't
me?
seem to have done him well. It doesn't seem to like so it just depends. Like I think it's like goes back to the branding and being consistent. If you're like the impulsive or flagrant or one of those podcasts, and yeah, maybe drama and comedy and things is what you want. You want that every episode. Every episode we should be yelling at each other or having some crazy thing happening.
Yeah.
But, in Huberman Labs, it's like, no, people just want to be, have him deadpan in front of the camera with his glasses, talking for 2 hours. That's what people actually want. And
Yeah.
Joe Rogan can somehow have a 5-hour podcast and people will actually watch all 5 hours because they expect it. They expect him to make like bear sounds and to show decapitation videos and talk about COVID and horse drugs. And, they expect that. So it's like being consistent. I mean, I feel like for us, even on our podcast, that's always the risk we take when we get a little off the rails a little too much is we've trained people to come here for one piece of content. So if we ever like do the switcheroo on them, they'll be like, oh, well, I guess this place isn't going to serve the dish I like anymore. They've changed to sushi. I used to like their pancakes, but now they do sushi.
Well, I'm more flexible on that one because like there's no bad publicity besides like no, there's no.
That's
bad
a famous
publicity.
last word, by the way. There's no bad publicity. 1 year later, he's on CNN.
But the point is like behind it is like as long as you can stand the bad publicity, that is the only caveat. As long as you can sustain it, the better and worse the publicity, and you can still keep doing what you're doing.
Well, you have to spray and pray type of thing. You have to just if this podcast ever did get to a big place, which is a relative term, whatever that means in my head, but if it ever like had a huge amount of viewership, I would just never look at the comments because once things do well, you're gonna have negative comments. Like I would just spray and pray. I would never look at them. I would literally there'd be a point where like this got to a point where I'd be like, I'm never looking at them again because I just need to be separate from it.
Yeah.
because it's a lot. Yeah, because when you put yourself out there and you finally do get all the eyeballs, it's a lot. It's like a state, yeah,
Yeah.
could you stand on stage in front of 500,000 people? Could you do that? Like, that's scary. So it's like you just gotta, I would just like close the curtains and be like, we just record this and I don't look at what happens. Maybe have you or someone else tell me how good it's doing.
Disco ball. But yeah.
And there's
No,
that ADD, ladies and gentlemen.
the ADHD is strong with this one. But yeah, so that's like the main thing. But we went kind of completely off topic, But we should go back to this topic and redirect this question to you, maybe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. This one's
In the
running a little
next
long, so
episode.
I'll be kind of quick on this one. So yeah, why do I do what I want to do? Why am I doing web design? Well, I think kind of similar to you, where it was the most effective place for me that pushes people to make decisions and to be like a hub for people in terms of marketing, operations, things for like a business. Websites seem to be the center of a lot of
Yeah.
different things, and that it's an important more and more important place as like the younger and younger generations go to less stores and they go online more. It's just becoming more and more important that these things work well. But for me, it's the fact that I to this day still think many websites are freaking boring and that they don't tell very compelling stories, and that they read more like a document from the 80s or something. They're just a bunch of blocks with text in them and an image. And it's funny because even contemporary web design is just like, well, now the image is curvy a little bit, and it's like not that, like, there's so much not
There's no
groundbreaking
wow.
stuff that I just feel like. And also, the reason for that is because a lot of people that make websites are developers, they come from computer science majors, so they're all about the code and stuff. They don't care about how something looks. So for me, I was like, well, this industry needs me. It needs a guy from art school in it, because the other creative people can't learn code. So so that's where I am, is because I feel like I'm actually needed. I used to not want to be a web designer. I used to say no to it, and now I am. So I think it's now about just doing it until I feel like I don't want to do it anymore, or I feel like there's something that's more important. I've talked to a lot of our guests, and I haven't got a good response on this. It kind of makes me mad, but what is the future of web design, especially with the experiential computing world? And like when we have quantum, like, where does web design go? Why, like, can't this become something bigger than just like what we think of websites? And
You wanna hear my thought about it?
yeah, let's go for it. Where do you think the future of websites is?
So it is like already like the Gary Vee has like the famous quote. It's like not even like, hey, I want to buy a new pair of shoes, and you just say it and you will get it, And we're already like halfway there. Like I don't know if you have been to the Getaway in St. Petersburg. It's like you scan the menu and you look at it and you don't even talk to a server. The food just comes to you after you scanning and selecting. So it feels like you're sitting in the park and the food is coming to you. And I mean, it will be the same thing on steroids. It's just like, okay, I want to have XYZ, or I want to hear about XYZ, and you will just get the information. So that's why I'm like, I don't know how that will be implemented with like Neuralink and stuff like that you see the visuals, That could be like part of it, where web design would have a future. But if it's the one version of Gary Vee where you just said like, I want to have a buffalo chicken sandwich and a Coke, and it arrives in 10 minutes, then there's no web design or videography, because like you just want it, and you say it, and you get the thing you like.
Well, right. I think, well, because there was the magic in stores that still exists if you're willing to go to a store. And certain stores like IKEA and places get this, is the idea that you need ideas from the store. Like a lot of people like to go grocery shopping in person. I don't anymore. I love picking it up and stuff. But some people feel the magic of like, I like to go and wander around and come up with ideas as I see things. And I think that's going to be where I'll always see, because what you said is also true, where people will be like, I want a cool e-bike, and it's going to be like, how about this? And you're like, cool. And then it comes, and there's no website involved. There's no actual place. It just we skip all of that. We just get straight to like where we need to go. And I think I think that's going to happen, but I think there's still going to be that need to like, I want to browse, I want to explore, I want to have ideas, I want to like,
Yeah.
so I think, I think you're absolutely right. So I think what's cool that I've started to think about is website design versus web design. And I think we may lose sites, the idea of site, the idea of like a rectangle box that scrolls in one direction or maybe two directions if
Yeah.
it's fancy. I think we're going to lose that over time. I think it'll be web design will always
Oh,
exist,
we already do.
just
Like
like
it's
graphic design.
horizontal.
Yeah, but like I think it'll be like, and there is cool sites that like at least give the illusion of moving front and back and things like that. But I do have a feeling that web design will always exist, just like graphic design will always exist. UI, UX design will always exist. But yeah, the idea of a website may change. It may just become web. You have
Yeah.
Web 3.0. It's not like they call it Website 3.0. They definitely call it Web 3 for a
Such a
reason.
weird buzzword, though, to be quite honest. Like, I'm still haven't seen a concept where Web3 makes any sense or does anything that is like supported. But yeah,
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, in Web
it's a
3,
big
it's a big
buzzword.
buzzword that most people don't understand. Like most buzzwords, when it starts, just like GPT, people don't actually get what that actually means.
Yeah.
Where but and for everyone out there that ever like asks me like, Sean, what is Web3? I just break it down into like Web3 is essentially one of the best examples, at least for Web3, is the blockchain. Is the fact that we are able to create a server from different parts of servers that everybody holds. So everybody has a part of a website. So what Web 1.0 was that you went to a server, you logged in and you could go to a server that's somewhere else. So like a simple informational page that lives on a company server. Web 2.0 was like Facebook, Twitter, where they own the server, but you create pages, you create content, you create whatever, you feed into their server. Now Web 3 is you own the server, you make all of the servers, you make the website. The website literally doesn't exist. It's just a compilation of all of the servers. So, which is kind of an interesting thought, right? Like could we have a website that like everybody could build together? Like, right, Infinite Creative Podcast, become a member and build our website with us. Like, just that's a Web3 kind of stance.
True. Well,
but what's Web4? But anyway, I'm already on to the next buzzword. What's Web4, bro?
Yeah. With that being said, though, do you like what you do?
Ooh, wow.
I still have to answer that too.
That's a very loaded question. I do love what I do when it works. I'll be honest, very transparent. The last 2 weeks have been kind of a nightmare for coding. I've been brought on to teams that are doing much more advanced, not much more advanced. So like, don't get me wrong, they're not giving me insane projects, but their flow is like an agency level professional flow, and I think there's been a lot of hiccups, and I haven't had hiccups in a while. And anyone that knows in the web coding world that when you hit like these standstills, it's excruciating. Where like I could spend 3 hours and get nothing done, literally nothing. I could ruin a weekend and work all weekend and get like a little bit done because I got so stuck. And that feeling sucks. Painting, I never run into that. I'll never like come up to the canvas and just staring at it for 3 hours. Like I'll never run into that.
That thing needs to change color soon.
It is slightly orange over time. But like, so the I ran into that and that sucked. But when it works, when I figure out the problem and it all comes together and the client's super happy and I get to hear, there's a client I recently did a website for where it's already boosted their sales and a lot of people love the website. That stuff I love. I freaking love it. I love telling stories. I love helping people. I think websites are such an alien thing for a lot of people. So to have me come in and like give them something is a very powerful thing. I love that. I don't love it when it doesn't work though, man. When it doesn't work, it really, that I start to push away from it. So, but no, I do love what I do. Do I think it may change? For sure. I think I'm always going to be about being creative, coming up with solutions for people, and just like you, kind of telling stories. How do I tell stories?
Yeah.
But how about you, man? Do you love what you do? Do you love being in the world you're in?
Like the ideal world for me is like I make my YouTube videos and I get paid by YouTube, and just doing whatever I want to do and build that system better out and don't need clients, because clients have opinions and their opinions might be different than mine. can be very painful, but it can be fine. So it's like I like when stuff goes and works and gets views, and So I rather, I do like what I do. I do like what I do.
Yeah, well, good.
Depending on the client.
Depending on the client. Well, so yeah, then that's the problem. We just got to get like awesome clients, and that's it. Well, that's cool, man. Well, it's been a good podcast. It's been good hearing about, do we like what we do? Going down the rabbit hole of like, what does videography content creation mean? What the heck is all this stuff about being good at what you do? So it's been good, man. I appreciate everyone. Like and subscribe. We're still going to be around, still making episodes, and
Toodly-doo.
Toodly-doo.